So I have been using this camera for the past few months. Before I decided to buy my first Leica, it's actually a very hard decision because I always think of the Leica brand and its camera as like a classic car where you can take it on a Sunday, you go for a smooth, easy ride. You cannot really go for a rough work, go off track, go trailblazing or go sport. Photography, for example, is something that I always think that camera Leica will be impossible. That's from my perspective anyway, working as a sport journalist for the past 10 years. And recently I came across Leica as more interesting. So I look into the price and I actually decide to bought one for secondhand. I actually appreciate it a lot, and here's the thing that I like to share with you guys just in case somebody is thinking about buying Leica Q2 in 2022. Before I buy, I look at Q2 as something that I can take anywhere and I can use as a secondary camera when I go on field work or anything. And I actually have one thing that I found to be my weakness when I do photography. It's actually, I don't really like to get close to the subject. Started as a street photographer, I always afraid to get close to people, to actually hold the camera up to their face and actually taking photos, because I always afraid that they will be like impolite or they might get offended with the camera. So after I bought this camera, it's actually the only thing that you have to do to get the photos, to maximize the abilities of this camera. So because Leica Q2, as many of you already know, is 28 millimeters, so it's sort of a wide angle lens, and it has 1.7 aperture, so it's a really good wide angle lens. With the Leica lens is also something that people already appreciate, the tones of the photos that are coming out of this camera. So when I started using it a few months ago, I found it to be very challenging. When I took my Leica out, I just go to the places where it's beautiful cinematic. So I take it to Wat Ratchanadda or Loha Prasad, which is basically one of the most beautiful temple here, right here in Bangkok, Thailand. I just took the photos that I always taking, the scenery, the architecture, and found out that this camera can offer something very unique in terms of cinematic, the tone of the pictures that they put out. Kind of disappointed with the result that came out because I still think it's not that much difference from the Canon that I was using. I was using a Canon 6D Mark II for the past few years before I decided to join the Leica club basically. After that, I talked to a lot of people, a lot of the Leica users. They keep telling me that, these Leica lenses, especially this one on the Q2, is specially designed for you to do a portrait photography. At first, I decided not to start it yet with the portrait photography, still because I'm still afraid of it. But I decided to start with something more challenging straight away. I came across a recent work that I found to be interesting. It's actually the Ratchadamnern Stadium. It's the oldest Muay Thai stadium here in Thailand. So basically it's the oldest Muay Thai stadium in the world. So I actually took this camera in and still thinking, yeah, it's probably can do some sport photography. So I decided to use it, and the result is actually quite stunning, to be honest, because I always think of this like a camera as a classic car where you took it on a Sunday, but here in Muay Thai Stadium, it's like you're bringing a classic car into the Formula One drive. And yeah, of course, it had a problem at first when I was using it. The focus system, of course, is not going to be as good as Sony or Canon, but it actually get the jobs done in terms of the action shot that I needed. I used the tricks that I always using when I taking photos of Muay Thai competition. I actually look at the shoulder of the Muay Thai fighters, or the movement that they start making. So when they start moving shoulders, I use the continuous shot straight away. So every time they move, I burst the shot, and it ended up giving me a very good a very good photos on the first assignment at Rajadamnern Stadium. And the photo came out stunning, to be honest. Actually quite impressed with the photo from Leica Q2 with the 28 millimeters lens. That's challenging for taking action photos. After that, I got another opportunities to go to the Rajadamnern Stadium once again. And this time the assignment is different. The first assignment is actually, they just renovated the stadium and they just changed a lot of the production of the Muay Thai at this historical stadium. So that was the first assignment. So I used Leica Q2 as some of the action shot camera sport photography. And this time it's actually they're gonna allow women fighters to fight for the first time in 77 years at this historical Muay Thai stadium. So this time I actually get to approach the Muay Thai fighters more, and some of them I already did an interview with, so I feel more comfortable getting close to them because I already knew them. And so this time I actually see the best thing that this Leica Q2 can offer is actually that thing that many people told me is a portrait mode. So when I get close to the subject actually popped out of the background, and that's the thing about Leica lens. It's actually give you that really dreamy look of the photos, and it's actually give the subject uniqueness. Every time I look at the photo, I see the definition of portrait. Even though I haven't been able to take portrait before in my life, I don't even know what it is. I don't even know how to take it. I don't even know how to get close to the subject and ask for a portrait. So Q2 actually forced me to do that, and the results is actually very, very stunning. And here are some of the photos that I took that night. So with the portrait modes that I've been able to use for the first time, I actually dare to approach people more after that. And for a lot of the special event that happened at Rajadamnern Stadium, I have the privilege to be there and to cover a lot of the events that happen over there. So yeah, it's actually the new beginning at Rajadamnern with the new production and the new sport entertainment idea. Actually reinvent myself as a portrait photographer as well. Even though I never like to say that I am a professional, because I'm still an amateur photographer. But yeah, so I actually appreciate that this Leica Q2 with the 28mm lens actually offer me varieties of photos abilities that I can use for my work. After I talk you through all this experience with Leica Q2 at the Muay Thai Stadium, I like to get into the pros and cons of the Q2, which I believe that is not 100% perfect, of course. It still have a lot of the stuff that I wish they have on here. So I like to go into the pros first. If you're gonna buy this camera, I believe that it will give you a very sharp looking, the portrait modes. The sport is okay if you can get close to the subject, or you can be in the position that you can use the 28mm lens. The crop mode is okay, because a lot of my work with Muay Thai, of course I have to crop. If I get too close, I will get my head kicks off. And yeah, so that's the good thing. And the tones of the photos, it gives you the sense of the place. It gives you the mood of everything that you try to capture in front of you, and it's very unique. Straight away you can tell that this photo is very unique. It's taking from something that is very different from other camera that I have used before. So yeah, that's the pros of using this camera. And the batteries is okay. It's give about around 500 to 800 shots for assignment. So it's okay for me. I don't take much more than that, because I don't want to kill my classic cars or Q2, of course, because that would be too much if I take too much photo of that. And yeah, basically the weather seal is okay. I take it out of the rain quite a few times. not the hardcore rain that we have recently here in Bangkok, but the those lightly raindrops is actually still okay. Hopefully it'll be okay, but for now it's still okay. And the cons of this camera is 28 millimeter lens. Of course, you cannot always get close to your subject to be able to take photos. So there has been some assignment that I am overconfident of this camera abilities, of the cropping system, of the cropping from the raw file of this camera. So I actually overestimate this camera for a little bit, and yeah, I end up messing up my work because I'm in the position that I can shoot. I cannot get close to the subject that I need to shoot. Yeah, that's the con of having only one lens and cannot change it. And yeah, sometimes when you, like I said before, this is a classic car. You cannot just use it as like a sport car. Every time something come up, you cannot just push on that shutter and expect it to continue forever for like 10 or 13 or 15 seconds. It's not gonna do that for you. It's gonna froze up on you, and it has froze up on me once before. So yeah, that's the con that I found on this camera. And yeah, with no hot shoes, it had the hot shoes, but with no any ports, with no ports at all for this Leica Q2, it's very challenging for it to be able to use the video mode. The video mode, basically you can take like a scenery and that's it, because the voice is not going to be as good as when you're having a hot shoe for mic. So yeah, that's the con that I found to be challenging for using this camera. So my conclusion for using Q2 so far for the past few months, I believe it's a great camera for secondary camera. I don't believe it's a great camera to be your primary camera when you're working, especially in sport. You're gonna need a telephoto lens. It's not gonna be like always you can get close to the subject. It will be impossible. It will be the best secondary camera in my opinion. I have been using this one that I shoot this video, the RX 100 Mark 7, before as a main and secondary camera. I believe that the tones and the photos that have come out of the Leica Q2 is much better, but of course the price is much higher. And yeah, so my verdict is actually I believe that this Leica Q2 will be good for you if you're looking for secondary camera from your official camera, which is mostly will be mirrorless this day or DSLR. So yeah, that would be good if you're working professionally as a photojournalism or sport photography. I actually seen one of the photographers from the Manchester United team when they came here for the match, Bangkok Century Cup. With the team, I actually see one of the photographer using Canon as their main camera and like a Q2 as their secondary camera, and that's basically the best usage for it that I found so far from using it. But like a Q2 can also be that camera you go to when you want to go anywhere and you just want to take one camera that is not gonna hassle you so much in your bag. That's not gonna take so many space in your bag that you don't need to take like another lens, another cap, another filters. You just need one camera that can do many things, but positively not everything. So yeah, that's my verdict for like a Q2. But of course, you have to think about the price of the camera, because this camera is very expensive, and I think I have been using it too much, so I have to tone it down for a bit. But yeah, I believe it's a powerful camera, but if you use it correctly. But if you use it as a sport car, I don't think it's suited for it. So this is my verdict for the Leica Q2, and hope it helps you guys if you guys are deciding to buy this Leica Q2 in 2022. I heard some rumors that there will be Q3 coming out soon, so yeah, we could look into that. But for now, I'm happy with my Leica Q2, and if you appreciate the review that I give, just click like and subscribe, and leave a comment of your experience with Leica Q2, or what do you like to know more about this Leica Q2 when I use it as a sport photographer. So thank you very much for watching. See you again next time.